أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الهداة المهديين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. When we look at the ahadith of Ahlul Bayt concerning the signs of the reappearance of the Imam, we notice that most of the signs occur in the Middle East. And that's why when we look at the incidents and the events that are unfolding today in the Middle East, such as what is happening in Iraq, what's happening in Ash-Sham, more specifically in Syria, in Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Yemen, one may be led to believe that the signs of the reappearance that our Imams told us about are indeed happening today. And thus, this is the time of the reappearance of the Imam. It's very close. And you hear from time to time certain speakers that will tell you this. And you will read articles on the internet, and these individuals will all try to apply those signs to our day today. And they will tell you that the signs of the reappearance that our Imams told us about are happening right now. And they will tell you that, for example, the ahadith speak about Al-Yamani and his movement. And they will tell you that the movement that we see today in Yemen, this is the movement of Yamani, for example. Or that what's happening in Iran, this is what? This is Khurasani. Or for example, what's happening in Sham, this is Sufyani. Now the question is here, are these events really signs of the reappearance? Can we really apply the signs of the reappearance to what's happening in the Middle East today or not? Now, it would be very pleasant and easy for me to come out and tell you yes, 100% these are the signs of the reappearance. And this would be music to certain individuals' ears. But unfortunately, it's not that simple. I cannot just come out and tell you that these incidents and these events and what's happening in the Middle East are for sure signs of the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi. Why? For two reasons. Number one, first of all, we have to understand the ahadith of the reappearance. The ahadith of the signs of the reappearance, we have to understand them. And in order to understand them, there is a lengthy, complicated process. We have to, first of all, only rely on ahadith that are mentioned in our reliable sources. You see, sometimes someone will bring you a hadith that's mentioned in sources that are not reliable. It has to be a hadith that's from the reliable sources. Bihar al-Anwar, which mentions most of the ahadith concerning the signs of the reappearance, or the early books that mention it, like Kamaluddin wa Tamamun Na'ma, Ghaybatul Tusi, Ghaybatul Na'mani, Al-Kafi, and all these other books. And then once we make sure it's from a reliable source, we have to understand the hadith in the correct way. Why? Because sometimes the Imams speak figuratively, sometimes they speak literally. I have to differentiate. The terminology has changed from the time of the Imam to now. What do I mean? We see in some ahadith the Imams speak about the Turks. Who are the Turks? The Turks of the time of the Imams are different than the Turks of, for example, the Ottoman Empire. And the Turks of the Ottoman Empire may be different than the Turks of today. Who exactly are the Turks? Is it Turkey? For example, Azerbaijan, can we consider that as Turks? For example, there are Turks in Iran, in Tabriz. Are those also Turks or not? So the terminology is vague sometimes. Likewise, the geography of certain countries has what? Has changed. For example, Bilad al-Sham. When the Imam says, Ash-Sham, this will happen in Sham and this will happen. What exactly is Sham? Because to us now, Sham is what? Sham is Syria, Damascus. In fact, when we say Sham, we mean specifically Damascus. While back then, Sham was much bigger. All of Syria, maybe you could have considered it Sham, Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon. All these countries were collectively Sham. So we have to be careful when we say this is a sign of reappearance, because we have to understand what the Imams were saying. This is number one. Number two, we have to also realize that many of the signs of the reappearance were general signs, meaning that they may happen many times throughout history. Now the Imam meant a specific incident, but since he said it in a general way, it could apply many times. Now what do I mean? If we go back to history, we will find that almost in every generation, there were certain events and incidents that happened, and the Shia of that time, they automatically assumed that this was a sign of the reappearance of the Imam. And if we were alive, if we were living during that time, we would have also interpreted those events as being signs of the reappearance. Years, tens of years, hundreds of years passed by, and nothing happened. The Imam never reappeared. Let me give you a few examples from history. Example number one. During the inception of the government of Bani al-Abbas, some companions of the Imams, they thought that the government of Ahlul Bayt could be applied to Bani al-Abbas. Why? Because we have a hadith that says one of the signs of reappearance, this is from Rasulullah and Imam Ali, is إقبال رايات سود من خراسان. There will be black standards that will come from Khurasan towards Iraq. Now, some of the companions, they thought that this is Bani al-Abbas. Why? Because who led the movement of Bani al-Abbas? Abu Muslim al-Khurasani. He was from Khurasan, correct? He came towards Iraq, and the standard of Bani al-Abbas and Abu Muslim al-Khurasani was black. So some of them said, this is what Rasulullah was speaking about in Imam Ali. But then they realized that this was not it. He was not speaking about this standard. This is what? This is the inception of Bani al-Abbas. Likewise, the collapse of Bani al-Abbas, you find certain scholars, they interpreted this as being a sign of the reappearance. 800 years passed so far and nothing happened. Imam al-Mahdi has not appeared. Why? We have a hadith from the Imam, and I spoke about this in the first lecture, that say that if the kingdom of Bani Fulan begins to collapse, then know that al-Mahdi will appear after that. Now the Imams didn't say the kingdom of Bani al-Abbas, they said Bani Fulan, the kingdom of a certain household. They didn't say a name. Many ulama, they said they're speaking about Bani al-Abbas. And that's why the Shia that lived during that stage, when the government of Bani al-Abbas was collapsing, many of them thought this was a sign of the reappearance. And many of them said Imam al-Mahdi will appear soon. Now, I mentioned in my first lecture, other ulama say this was a sign, but Allah erased it. Bada happened to it. But many other ulama say that Bada never happened in this sign. The Imam didn't say Bani al-Abbas, he said Bani Fulan. You guys assumed, you Shia assumed incorrectly that we were speaking about Bani al-Abbas. And that's why you find amongst the ulama that lived during that time was As-Sayyid ibn Tawus. As-Sayyid ibn Tawus lived during that age. It's narrated that As-Sayyid ibn Tawus said that I am 100% certain, based on the political events that I'm seeing, I am 100% certain that Imam al-Mahdi will appear in my time. And this is how many years ago? 800 years ago. 800 years passed by, nothing happened. So this is what? This is a second example of certain events that the Shia saw. They thought this was a sign of reappearance, nothing happened. Let me give you a third example. In one of our ahadith, it says that amongst the signs of the reappearance is this: وَنُزُولَ التُّرْكِ الْجَزِيرَةِ. The hadith says the Turks from the north, they will come down to the island or to the peninsula and they will rule it. Now what is this speaking about? Now, when the Ottomans, they conquered Mecca and Medina from the north, their base was in present Turkey. When they conquered Mecca and Medina, many Shia, they said this is what the ahadith were speaking about, because at-Turk are the Ottoman Empire. They will what? They will come down to the peninsula or the island. They came down and they conquered Mecca and Medina. So they said this is one of the signs of the reappearance. And this was how many years ago? Hundreds of years ago. And nothing happened. The Imam did not reappear. So this is what? This is number 3. Number 4. It's narrated that about 100 years ago, a group of Shia, they left from Iraq and they went to Syria. They went to visit As-Sayyida Zainab in Sham. Now on their way there, they spent one night in Asham, in Damascus. They spent a night there. While they were spending the night in that area, they were told that amongst the people of that area was a man by the name of Ambasa. And they were told that that same night that they spent there, Ambasa, he had a child, his wife gave birth. And they were told that he named his child Uthman. So what's the name of this child now? Uthman ibn Ambasa. When we go back to the ahadith, and I already mentioned that, the Imam, he says in one hadith, the name of As-Sufyani is Uthman ibn Ambasa. And this child's name was Uthman ibn Ambasa. So when they finished their ziyarah, and they went back to Iraq, they went to the city of Al-Najaf, and they went and they met one of our ulama by the name of Sheikh Abdullah al-Mamaqani, that lived 100 years ago. They went and they told him the story. They said when we told him the story, he did sujood right away. They asked him, why did you do sujood, Shaykhna? He said, because I thanked Allah that the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi is near. Why? Because he assumed that Uthman ibn Ambasa as-Sufyani, and the ahadith tell us when Sufyani appears, Imam al-Mahdi will appear soon after that. So he assumed that Sufyani was that man, Uthman ibn Ambasa. And this story is how long ago? 100 years ago. Nothing happened. Imam al-Mahdi did not appear. This is number 4. And number 5, we have certain ahadith that mention amongst the signs of reappearance is this. وَقَتْلُ أَهْلِ مِصْرِ أَمِيرَهُمْ. The people of Egypt will kill their emir, their leader, their ruler. Now, if you remember, in the early 1980s, what happened? Anwar al-Sadat, he was the president of Egypt and he was assassinated, correct? So many Shia said that this is a sign of the reappearance because the hadith says, Ahl Masr, they will kill their leader. You see, the signs are all general. So you see one incident, you think it applies to it, you apply it, and you see nothing happens. It's been about, what, 30, 40 years since that incident, and Imam al-Mahdi has yet not, what? Has not appeared yet. So all this comes to show you that we shouldn't rush to conclusions and applying whatever we see to our current affairs. And likewise today, there are many things that we see, and many of us assume that this is a sign of the reappearance of the Imam, because we look at the hadith and we look at the current events, it's very similar, and we say for sure that we are living during the time of the reappearance, and we will see Imam al-Mahdi. And I'll give you a few examples. Example number 1 of our current events that some people, they say this is a sign of the reappearance. Example number 1. We have in our ahadith mentioned that amongst the signs of the reappearance is As-Sufyani. And I spoke about that. And we said this is amongst Al-Alamat al-Mahtuma, the definite signs. Now, when we read about Sufyani and what the movement of Sufyani will do and how it will begin, many people, right when they think about Sufyani, who comes to their minds? ISIS, Daesh. Why? Because our ahadith state that Sufyani and his movement will begin in Sham. ISIS began in Sham. We read in the ahadith that when Sufyani and his movement begins, there will be a civil war in Sham. And one hadith says there will be a civil war between 3 factions. Right away you think, wait a minute, Syria, you have Daesh, you have Jabhat al-Nusra, you have Jaysh al-Hur. The hadith tells us that out of these factions, the Sufyani will be the prevalent one. And we see that ISIS is the one that prevailed on all the other factions that were fighting against. So we say Sufyani is ISIS, correct? Now, in addition to that, a hadith from the Imam says that amongst the signs of the reappearance is that Ash-Sham will see fear and hunger like they have never ever seen before. Fear and hunger like they have never ever witnessed. And look at what's happening in Syria today. Look at the hunger. So many besieged cities, no food, no water. Children die because of lack of food. And likewise fear. Everywhere there's fear. So you see that this is a sign that could apply to Syria. And likewise, we find that the ahadith state that As-Sufyani is a Nasibi. He will chase the Shia and kill them. And I read one hadith that said this, that one of the generals of As-Sufyani, he will make a call. He will say, whoever brings a head of a Shia kills a Shi'i. And he brings his head to me, then I will give him 1,000 dirhams. And you see, this is what Daesh is doing right now in Iraq. Killing Shia. Their main goal is to kill Shia. And likewise, the ahadith state that after its inception in Syria or in Sham, they will invade. So the Sufyani and his troops will invade Iraq. And you see, this is exactly what ISIS did. They were established, they began in Syria, and then they invaded Iraq. And you see what happened in Iraq and the West Iraq and Mosul and all the other cities. So right away, based on all this knowledge, you assume that Sufyani is Daesh 100%. Can we be sure Sufyani is Daesh? Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. Now, keep in mind that about 50, 60 years ago, many Shia thought that As-Sufyani was whom? Was the Soviet Union. Why? Because the Soviet Union, what is it called in Arabic? Al-Ittihad, As-Sufyati. Sufyati, Sufyani. Do they sound similar? So many Shia, they assumed that Sufyani is Sufyati. The Imam didn't say Sufyati, he said Sufyani. So the Soviet Union was what? Was the Sufyani. And they truly believed in this. The Soviet Union collapsed and nothing happened. So this is what? This is example number one. Example number two of certain things that are happening during our time, Shia of our time, they say this is definitely a sign of the reappearance of the Imam. Is what? A second sign is, you see, for example, what's happening in Yemen. What's happening in Yemen, you find many people, they say this is one of the signs of the reappearance because we see the movement of the Houthis, right? And they are fighting the Nawasibs, the enemies of Ahlul Bayt. And the ahadith speak about a movement that will begin in Yemen called the movement of Al-Yamani. And the ahadith say that the movement of Al-Yamani is amongst the best of the movements. They praise the Yamani. So some individuals will tell you the Yamani are the Houthis. Now, this is what? This is example number two. Example number three, Khurasani. Khurasani, likewise, the ahadith tell us, is a movement that will begin towards the side of Khurasan in Iran. And they will also fight the enemies of Ahlul Bayt, and they will fight against ISIS. Some individuals say Khurasani today is whom? Is Iran, because they were fighting ISIS and they stopped ISIS from basically destroying Iraq and also attacking Iran. So they will tell you that Sufyani is Iran. This is number three. Number four also, another example that you have of today. We have a hadith that says amongst the signs of the reappearance is this: وَخَلْعُ الْعَرَبِ أَعِنَّتَهَا وَخُرُوجُهَا عَنِ السُّلْطَانِ. Amongst the signs of the reappearance is that the Arabs will revolt against their kings and leaders and they will topple them and remove them. Many people say this is what? Obviously this is the Arab Spring, what we saw in Egypt and Libya and Tunis and the surrounding countries. So they automatically assume that what the Imam said 1,000 years ago, they were speaking about the Arab Spring that happened a few years ago. This is what? This is number four. Number five, we have a hadith from the Imam that says this. He says, مَنْ يَضْمِنْ لِي مَوْتَ عَبْدِ اللَّهِ أَضْمِنْ لَهُ الْقَائِمِ. He says, whoever sees a king by the name of Abdullah, whoever sees that king and that king dies, whenever that king dies, then Al-Mahdi will appear soon after that. And then the Imam, he says, once this king Abdullah dies, the family that he's from, the ruling family, they will begin to disagree amongst them, and they will not agree on one individual, and their king and their rulers will begin to change every month or every few months. And then the narrator, he asks, will this take a long time? He says, no. The Imam says, when Abdullah dies, shortly after, soon after, Al-Mahdi will appear. Many people will tell you this is speaking about Saudi Arabia. King Abdullah that died almost 1.5 years ago, this was the king that the Imam was speaking about. Was he speaking about that king? Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. This is example number five. Example number six, a sixth example of what's happening right now. There are hadith that tell us this. They speak about al-rayat al-sufr. There will be yellow flags or yellow standards. The ahadith tell us these yellow flags, they will come from the west and they will come to Sham. And there will be lots of what? Lots of violence in Sham, and they will fight in Sham. Many people say this is none other than whom? Hezbollah in Lebanon, correct? Because their standard is yellow, their flags are yellow, they're west of Sham. they came to Sham to fight, and there was lots of disagreements to Sham. Now, I just want to tell you one thing. The hadith do not praise these individuals. They don't say these are good people. The hadith just speaks about them. It just says that amongst the signs of the reappearance is that these individuals, they will come to Sham. So the hadith do not praise the people that they have the yellow standards. In fact, some ulama, they understand that these are evil individuals. But you have certain people that say, no, these are good people, and these are the certain group that we mentioned in Lebanon. So this is another example. Another example, a sixth example, which number did we reach? Is we have a hadith that I already mentioned. The Imam, he says, amongst the signs of the reappearance is there will be what? This verse will apply. He read this verse. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ. Amongst the things the Imam said, that amongst the signs of the reappearance is there will be what? Lack of money, lack of wealth. There will be a recession. There will be a global recession. And that's why you have certain Shia today, certain scholars, certain speakers that have come on the minbar and have said, I have heard them, they have said that the global recession of 2008, this was what Imam al-Sadiq was speaking about 1,000 years ago, when he said that amongst the signs of the zuhur, of the reappearance of the Imam, is that there will be a global recession. Was Imam al-Sadiq truly speaking about this? Only Allah knows. And finally, we have in our ahadith, the Imams, they speak about the people of two countries. Number one, the people of Palestine, and number two, the people of Bahrain. I saw a hadith speaking about the signs of reappearance. The Imam, he says, amongst the signs of the reappearance is the people of Bahrain and the people of Palestine. They will endure very, very difficult times. They will go through difficult times. The Imam says, Al-waylu li ahli al-Bahrain. Woe unto them. This is how difficult a time they will go through. And many people, they say the Imam was speaking about this time, the occupation that's taking place in Palestine, and what happened, the revolution of the people of Bahrain the past few years, and how the government, started a major crackdown against them. So, the point that I'm trying to tell you is, there are many incidents that are always happening, and we, the Shia, assume that these are automatically signs of the reappearance. Are they necessarily signs of the reappearance? Only Allah knows. We cannot rush and saying that this is a sign of the reappearance of the Imam for sure. We cannot say for sure that these are signs of the reappearance, because these are general signs. The Imam says black standards, yellow standards, Sufyani. They could apply to anyone. How can I be 100% sure that the Imam is speaking about this movement? Just like I mentioned the stories of Shia that lived many years ago. They saw certain things in their time. They thought this was a sign. Nothing happened. Remember I mentioned Sayyid ibn Tawus, 800 years ago. He witnessed the collapse of what? Of Bani al-Abbas. He said, this is a sign and Imam al-Mahdi will appear in my time. This is 800 years ago and nothing happened. So we shouldn't rush, my friends. And that's why the hadith of Imam al-Sadiq, he mentions this. This is all from our hadith. He says in one hadith, Imam al-Sadiq, about not rushing and assuming. Don't assume everything you see, this is a sign automatically. Don't assume Imam al-Mahdi will come in your time. Have hope, yes. It's good to have hope in al-Mahdi. Say, I hope these are signs of the reappearance. Say, inshallah, the Imam, I will see him in my time. But do not say for sure. Only Allah knows for sure if these are the signs of the reappearance. Maybe 100 years will pass. 200 years will pass and nothing will happen. Thus Imam al-Sadiq, he says in the hadith, he says, كَذَبَ الْوَقَّاتُونَ. He says, number one, that those individuals that give you a time, they will tell you Imam al-Mahdi will appear in this year. These individuals are imposters, they're liars, do not believe them. No one knows but Allah. And then the Imam says, وَهَلَكَ الْمُسْتَعْجِلُونَ. Those individuals that what? They're always in a rush. Oh, they assume this is a sign. Oh, Imam al-Mahdi is going to come in my time. These people, halaku, they're going to die without seeing Imam al-Mahdi. They're making a big mistake. So don't rush, don't be in a hurry. Oh, this is a sign, that's a sign, Imam al-Mahdi is coming next year. هَلَكَ الْمُسْتَعْجِلُونَ. And then he says, وَنَجَى الْمُسَلِّمُونَ. He says those individuals that will be safe, those individuals whose position and mentality is correct, is those that what? That say, I don't know when Imam al-Mahdi will reappear. The point is, I'm ready. Whether Imam al-Mahdi appears tomorrow, whether he appears in 50 years, or whether he appears in 1,000 years. The point is, I am ready, I do my wajibat, and I am ready. So this is the correct mentality, Imam al-Sadiq says. Don't always rush and assume that these are signs. Say, whenever Imam al-Mahdi comes, I will be ready. We should always be ready for Imam al-Mahdi. And in another hadith, it's mentioned that the ashab of Imam al-Sadiq, they had gathered around Imam al-Sadiq and they were speaking about the signs of the reappearance. And they were applying to some of the events of their time to that time, because many Shia, they thought that, the government of Al-Mahdi, because to them Al-Mahdi wasn't clear who's going to be, which of the Imams is going to be Al-Mahdi and which of the Imams will rise. So some of them, they were saying, maybe it's going to be in our time. Al-Mahdi is going to appear very soon. Imam al-Sadiq, he said these words. He says, إِنَّمَا هَلَكَ النَّاسِ مِنْ أَجْلِ اسْتِعْجَالِهِمْ لِهَذَا الْأَمْرِ. He said, how many individuals have incorrectly assumed that these are signs of the reappearance, and they weren't signs. How many individuals have incorrectly assumed that Imam al-Mahdi will appear soon? And Imam al-Mahdi did not appear soon. The Imam said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَعْجَلْ لِعَجَلَةِ الْعِبَادِ. He said, you human beings are in a hurry. You always want to assume. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not in a hurry. Allah has set a designated date, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to change it just because of your speculations and because of your assumptions. So, and then the Imam, he said this. In another hadith, the Imam, he said these beautiful words. He says about our aqeedah and about waiting for the Imam. He says, اعرف هذا الأمر فإنك إن عرفت هذا الأمر لم يضرك تقدم هذا الأمر أو تأخره. He says that make sure that your aqeedah is correct. You believe in Al-Mahdi, he's the Imam of your time. Do the duties that I spoke about in my earlier lectures. I said there are certain duties that we have to do to be called a muntadhir, a waiter, someone that waits for the Imam. Do those duties in al-ghayba, and you're all set. Don't worry about what happens after that. اعرف هذا الأمر فإنك إن عرفت هذا الأمر لم يضرك تقدم هذا الأمر أو تأخره. As long as you're doing what you're supposed to do, you're ready for the Imam, your aqeedah is right, it doesn't matter if Imam al-Mahdi comes tomorrow or in 1,000 years. The Imam says why? He says فإنك إن عرفت هذا الأمر فمن عرف هذا الأمر ومات قبل أن يقوم صاحب هذا الأمر. If someone, his aqeedah is correct, if someone, he does what he has to do, he does his duties towards the Imam, but he dies before the Imam comes, the Imam says كان بمنزلة من كان قاعدا في عسكره. If you don't make it for that day that the Imam comes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you did what you were supposed to do, you did your duties to Imam Mahdi, you had that connection with Imam al-Mahdi, the things I said, you do dua for al-Mahdi, you do ziyarah, you do good deeds for al-Mahdi, you read dua al-nudbah, and you make sure that you're doing good deeds, staying away from the bad deeds to please Imam al-Mahdi. If you're doing what you're supposed to do, and you die before Imam al-Mahdi appears, Allah will write you as if you were one of the companions of al-Mahdi. We've spoke about this. And in fact, I remember I mentioned the hadith of Imam al-Sadiq. He says, من مات منتظرا لهذا الأمر, whoever dies but doing his duties before the Imam comes, the Imam said he will be as if he fought with Imam al-Mahdi. And then the Imam said, no, even higher, he will be as if he fought with Rasulullah. And then the Imam, he said even higher, he will be as if he was a shaheed that was killed with Rasulullah, and he will be even better than many of the shuhada of Rasulullah. So the Imams are trying to tell us this. Don't stress it. The Imam will come tomorrow or in 1,000 years. The point is, be ready. Yes, we would love that the Imam comes sooner. We would all want that. That's why the Imam said in the Tawqi', do dua وَأَكْثِرُوا مِنَ الدُّعَاء بِتَعْجِيلِ الْفَرَجِ فَإِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ or فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ فَرَجَكُمْ or فَرَجُكُمْ. The Imam said, always do dua, ask Allah to hasten my reappearance, because Allah will answer our du'as, He will make it quicker. So do dua, we yearn for His reappearance, but don't stress it. If you die while you have the correct aqeedah, while you were doing what you were supposed to do, Allah will write you amongst the Shia and the companions of Imam al-Mahdi. And we mentioned in the hadith that Allah sends an angel to my grave. When Imam al-Mahdi rises, he will ask me, your master al-Mahdi has finally appeared. Do you want to come back in the raj'ah and fight with him or not? So why should I stress it? The point is, if I do what I have to do, Allah will write me amongst the companions and I can come back and join the Imam and his army. So that's why we have to be extra careful, my friends, before we apply any sign of the reappearance to our time. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And because of this point, because many of these signs are not clear, they're general, they can apply to many times, you find there are certain individuals, there are certain times in history where some people have taken advantage of these signs to try to apply them to themselves. Certain imposters throughout history have claimed to be Al-Mahdi, or they have claimed to be some of the supporters of Al-Mahdi. Let me give you two examples. One example is of Bani al-Abbas. Bani al-Abbas, when they came to power, they claimed that our government that we formed, this is the government of Al-Mahdi. Rasulullah spoke of Al-Mahdi, right? He said, Al-Mahdi min utrati, min ahli bayti. He said that Al-Mahdi is from my family. He said that Al-Mahdi, he will come at a time in which the world is filled with what? With injustice. He will fill it with justice. They said Rasulullah was speaking about us. Do you see how they twist these ahadith so that they can benefit from them? Why? They said, number one, the Prophet said that Al-Mahdi will be what? And his government, they will be from my family. They said, we are the cousins of Rasulullah, Bani al-Abbas. So he was speaking about us. That's number one. Number two, they said that the ahadith indicated that he will come at a time in which the world is filled with injustice. They will remove the injustice, the government of Al-Mahdi. Yes? They say Rasulullah was speaking about Bani Umayyah. The injustices of Bani Umayyah. We removed Bani Umayyah and we are filling the world with justice. This is number two. Number three, they said that the ahadith indicated that a sign of the reappearance will be what? We mentioned this. The black standards from Khurasan. And the what? And the movements of Bani al-Abbas was begun by whom? Abu Muslim Khurasani from Khurasan, and his standard was black. So they said the Prophet was speaking about us. The Quran, they said, was speaking about us. We mentioned, Allah mentioned in the Quran in various verses that what? That Al-Mahdi will come and he will establish justice. They said Allah was speaking about us. We are the Mahdi. For example, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ لَيَسْتَخْلِفَنَّهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make you khalifas. Allah was speaking about us. When Allah says, هُوَ الَّذِي أَرْسَلَ رَسُولَهُ بِالْهُدَى وَدِينِ الْحَقِّ لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ. He was speaking about us. When Allah said, for example, in the Quran, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلَهُم الْوَارِثِينَ. Allah was speaking about us. We want to make amongst the weak, we want to make them what? We want to make them khulafa. Likewise, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Holy Quran, وَلَقَدْ كَتَبْنَا فِي الزَّبُورِ مِنْ بَعْدِ الذِّكْرِ أَنَّ الْأَرْضَ يَرِثُهَا عِبَادِيَ الصَّالِحُونَ. We are ibad Allah salihun. So they tried to what? They tried to show people that we are the Mahdi. And that's why the second Khalifa of Bani al-Abbas was whom? Was Al-Mansur. Al-Mansur, do you know what he did? He did a very evil he prepared an evil plan, and amongst the evil things he did to fool people was that he named his son Al-Mahdi. The third Khalifa of Bani al-Abbas was Al-Mahdi, the son of Al-Mansur. Why did he name it Al-Mahdi? To say that Rasulullah spoke of Al-Mahdi, this is the Mahdi. Khalas, yalla, follow him back. He wanted to fool the whole world, the whole Shia. This is the Mahdi that Rasulullah spoke. He's from the family of Rasulullah, Bani al-Abbas, and so on and so forth. This is one example of certain imposters that try to take advantage of these signs of reappearance because they're general signs. Another example you have currently today. Today, in Al-Basra in Iraq, and I spoke about this in one of my lectures, there is a certain person by the name of Ahmed ibn Gwata, or Ahmed Gwata they call him. This person, he and his followers, they claim that he is the Yamani. Sayyid al-Yamani that we mentioned amongst the definite signs of the reappearance is al-Yamani. They say al-Yamani is this individual. And they say that we have to join him and that he is what? He is preparing the people for the Imam and he is an ambassador of the Imam. And I also went on his website once. I saw that he says that I am the grandson of Imam al-Mahdi as well. There's like 4 parents between him, 4 fathers between him and Imam al-Mahdi. And he has so many followers everywhere. This is also an imposter that what? That has taken advantage of these ahadith. And you see these individuals, first of all, you never see him. No one has seen this guy go out there. Why doesn't he show himself? And you usually find that these people, if tell them to read 2 verses of the Quran, you see they don't know how to read even 2 verses of the Quran. But then he claims he's what? He claims he's the Yamani. So we have to be careful, brothers and sisters. We shouldn't assume, we shouldn't rush anything we see. We say, oh, this is a sign of the reappearance. Because our fathers, our grandfathers, our ancestors, they thought that what happened in their time was a sign, 100%. Nothing happened. So likewise, our grandchildren, maybe they will say the same. Insha'Allah, yes. Insha'Allah, what's happening now is a sign of the reappearance, but no one knows. The only way to find out is to wait and see. So this is the second point that we have to bring to attention. And finally, the last point about the signs of the reappearance. According to the ahadith, what is the chronological order of the signs of the reappearance? What will happen first? Now, 2 points before I mention the chronological order. The first point is there are some signs that are general signs. They may happen not necessarily right before the Imam appears. They may happen years before. For example, the signs that we said, the world will be filled with injustice and corruption. This is not necessarily a few days before the Imam. This is the general time of the reappearance. But then there are certain signs that will happen a few months before Imam al-Mahdi appears, according to the ahadith. So what is the order of those signs? So that if we saw that order, this could be a clue that Imam al-Mahdi is clear. This is point number 1. Point number 2, we said, remember that 5 of the signs are definite. The others, their bada' can happen in them. So Allah may erase them. He may remove them, and Allah may leave them. So they may happen. So this is all based on what? On no bada' happening. Maybe bada' will happen, and just the 5 signs will happen. The rest may not happen. But they may happen as well. So we have to keep in mind that bada' may happen, and other than the 5. So what's the sequence of the events? The ahadith tells us that the first major event that will happen before Imam al-Mahdi appears is 3 things will happen in 1 month. The ahadith tell us that As-Sufyani, Al-Khurasani, and Al-Yamani, these 3 individuals and their movements, they will all begin in the same month. Which month? The ahadith even mention the month. The hadith of the Imam says during Rajab. During Rajab, which is 2 months before Ramadan, you have Rajab, Sha'ban, and Ramadan. During Rajab, Sufyani, Khurasani, Yamani. The Imam says in the hadith that these 3, they will appear in the same year, the same month, and the same day. So this will happen in Rajab. And then the ahadith tell us that Sufyani, he'll begin his movement in Sham. Khurasani, he'll begin his movement from Khurasan. Yamani from the south in Yemen. And Sufyani, what happens is, remember we said there's a civil war. He will prevail in that civil war. And then As-Sufyani, after he controls Ash-Sham, he will move to Iraq. The ahadith tells us he will invade Iraq, and he will invade Al-Basra, Al-Kufa, Baghdad, and many atrocities, many massacres will be done by him. The ahadith tell us lots of people will be killed in Kufa and Baghdad and Hilla. These 3 cities are mentioned in many of the ahadith. He will kill thousands of the Shia. Thousands of Shia will be killed. And after the destruction in Iraq, he will then direct his what? His troops towards Iran. Then they will try to go and conquer Iran, but the troops of Khurasani will prevent him. So he will retreat. He will go back to Iraq and he will go back to Sham. So this is with Sufyan. And then the ahadith tell us, when will Imam al-Mahdi appear? Some ahadith tell us, Imam al-Mahdi will also appear in Rajab. Other ahadith say in Ramadan, 23rd of Ramadan, Laylatul Qadr, he will appear. But he won't rise. Listen carefully. He won't rise. He will keep a low profile. Imam al-Mahdi will appear, but he won't rise. So only few people will see him. But he will appear. He'll come out from the ghaiba, 23 of Ramadan. And during that same day, we said amongst the signs of the reappearance was what? Was the sayha, the heavenly cry of Jibreel. So when Imam Mahdi appears, the same day Jibreel, he will make a call. What will he say? Some ahadith say, he will say this, قَدْ ظَهَرَ الْمَهْدِيُّ مِنْ آلِ مُحَمَّدٍ, that Al-Mahdi from Ahlul Bayt has finally appeared. Other ahadith, he will say, إِنَّ الْحَقَّ مَعَ عَلِيٍّ وَآلْ عَلِيٍّ. The haqq, the truth, is with Ali ibn Abi Talib and the family of Ali. Now, this is what? This is during the 23rd night of Ramadan. So, Sufyani appears in Rajab. The next month, Ramadan, Imam Mahdi appears but keeps a low profile. 23rd, Jibreel makes a call. The hadith says that same day, the devil, Iblis, when he hears the call of Jibreel, he will begin to panic. He will say, now Jibreel has, supernaturally interfered. Everyone's going to believe in Al-Mahdi. I'm going to lose. So he begins to panic. He begins to what? He begins to think, how should I disrupt the plan of Jibreel? How should I destroy it? He comes up with a very evil plan. The next night or the next day, the devil, he will make a call. For the first time, that voice that was always whispering in our minds, we will hear it. Many ahadith indicate that Iblis, the devil, he will make a call as well. Everyone will hear it. What will he say? He will say, Al-Haqqu fi Uthman wa Shi'atah. He says, Jibreel said the haqq is with Ali and his Shia. That Iblis, he will come and say, no, haqq, the truth is with Uthman and his Shia. Now, who's Uthman? One hadith says that by Uthman he means Uthman ibn Affan, the third Khalifa. Another hadith says he means Uthman ibn Ambasa, Sufyani. So now there's a war. Sufyani is claiming he's the truth. Al-Mahdi has appeared now. He's mobilizing his troops, but he's keeping a low profile. So Jibreel says the haqq is with Mahdi. Shaitan comes, he confuses the people. He says, no, haqq is with Sufyani. The narrator, he asked the Imam, so how can we tell which one's the true one? We're going to be confused. He said, those believers, the ones that were true believers, they won't be affected. It's only the ones that their iman was shallow, that they were hesitant to begin with, maybe they will be affected. But the believers who have deep iman, they will not be affected at all. So this is all in Ramadan. And then what happens? Imam al-Mahdi, the ahadith say he will be in Medina until Dhul Hijjah. In Dhul Hijjah, which is the time of Hajj. So Rajab, Ramadan, and then Dhul Qa'dah, the fighting of Sufyani, all the destruction he does in Iraq, until Dhul Hijjah, 2 months after Ramadan. Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, 3 months after Ramadan, Imam al-Mahdi finally sends a messenger to the people of Mecca during Hajj. And we spoke about this. We said this is one of the definite signs of Al-Mahdi. He sends whom? Muhammad ibn al-Hasan, Dhun Nafs al-Zakiyah. He sends him to the people of Mecca to prepare the people of Mecca to join him. He goes to Mecca during Hajj, he invites the people. The people of Mecca, they kill him in Masjid al-Haram. When does this happen? The ahadith mention the date. This happens 25 of Dhul Hijjah. So the incidents begin from Rajab, Sha'ban, Ramadan, Dhul Hijjah, Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah. 25 of Dhul Hijjah, the hadith state that this messenger of the Imam will be killed in Masjid al-Haram. And then the ahadith state Imam al-Mahdi will then leave to Medina to go to Mecca. He will go to Mecca. The ahadith state that the troops of the spies of Sufyani, they hear that al-Mahdi has appeared and that he has secretly gone from Medina to Mecca. So what does he do? He sends an army of 12,000 individuals from Medina to Mecca. This is all in the hadith. 12,000 individuals from Medina to Mecca, and this is where one of the definite signs happens. Al-Khasfu bil-Bayda. The earth will swallow these 12,000 individuals. Allah will destroy them right there, just vanish. Only 2 will remain. The first one, Allah keeps him alive so that he goes back to the troops of Sufyani and he tells them of what happened. And once he tells them, the hadith says the troops of Sufyani, they will be terrified. The 12,000 just vanished. They will know Imam Mahdi uses miracles. The other one, he'll go to Al-Mahdi in Mecca and he will tell him of what happened. He will give him the good tidings and the Shia of Al-Mahdi will be happy. So this is all what? Late Dhul Hijjah, beginning of Muharram. Until the ahadith tell us finally, it is the 10th day of Muharram, subhanallah. The day of Ashura is the day in which Imam al-Mahdi finally rises. He comes out in front of the people and he begins to what? He begins his revolution. What will happen after that? Inshallah, I will speak about that tomorrow in our final lecture about the series of Imam al-Mahdi. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the understanding and the patience that we can be amongst the muntadhirin, those that wait for the Imam, do our duties for the Imam, And He may give us patience so that we do not always assume incorrect things and we do not rush into incorrect conclusions. I ask Allah to hasten the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi. I ask Him to make us all amongst the companions of Imam al-Mahdi. And I ask Him to accept our a'mal, our hajat, our fasting, our salat during this blessed month of Ramadan. And there is a request from many brothers to do dua for the sick ones. I likewise request you to do dua for one of my relatives, my father's uncle, the brother of my grandfather, Sayyid Murtada Al-Qazwini. He is very sick. He needs your dua. So please, let us all raise our hands and do dua for him and for all your sick ones. Many brothers and sisters have told me that they have also from their family members and friends, individuals that are sick and they need your dua. So let us please recite this verse 5 times, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may cure all these individuals and He may hasten the reappearance of the Imam. Everyone together. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات نهدي ثواب الفاتحة مع الصلوات.